This tutorial is on school-wide PBIS Tiered Fidelity Inventory Feature 1.6 Discipline Policies. You will learn how to create a discipline flowchart for your school. Possible data sources for this project are your school's discipline policy, handbook, and code of conduct. This tutorial was created by the West Virginia Behavior Mental Health Technical Assistance Center. We were created by a collaborative project between the West Virginia Department of Education and the West Virginia Autism Training Center at Marshall University. A discipline flowchart is important because it creates continuity of consequences for challenging behavior school-wide. It provides a clear outline for everyone of what will take place when negative behaviors occur. It will also be an accountability tool for staff and students in the school to maintain high behavior expectations and defines the responsibility placed on each individual when negative behavior happens. The first step in creating a discipline flowchart is to involve all staff in a meeting to help create buy-in to the finished product. Start off the meeting by discussing the importance of a discipline flowchart and why you think your school's current management of discipline may not be working. Break the staff into groups of 4 to 6 to work on the activity. Create a list of problem behaviors often seen in your school or listed in your handbook, and give each group a copy or post them for all to see. Explain that behaviors need to be organized between classroom or teacher managed, minor behaviors, and office managed, also called major behaviors. It is important that the whole staff come to consensus on where the behaviors belong because we need consistency for the students. We don't want teachers handling a behavior in their classroom and then the student have the same behavior in another classroom and be sent to the office. At the same time, we know some days our tolerance for negative behaviors changes compared to other days. This can be very confusing for a student if one day the behavior is teacher managed and the next day they are sent to the office. That is why it is very important that once we all agree how behaviors are managed, that we stick to this chart. It is what is best for our students and ourselves. Once the activity is explained, give each group a large post-it board, small sticky notes, and Sharpies. At the top of the large post-it board, have each group make a T-chart. It should have classroom managed on one side and office managed on the other side. The group should look at the first list of problem behaviors given to them and come to a consensus within the group of where each behavior should belong. This is a good opportunity to put teachers of different classroom management capabilities into the same group. By doing that, you will allow time for discussion of behavior management techniques and they can share strategies. The teacher that sends every student to the office is going to have a very different opinion of where several of the problem behaviors go on the chart compared to the teacher who sends no students to the office. It is important that your staff come to a middle ground that everyone can live with. Everyone will have to make some changes once the discipline flowchart is finalized and gets put into practice. This is an example of a T-chart that you can use to help staff understand how to do the activity. There is no right or wrong place to put the behavior, so do not use this as an example to replicate for your school. Your staff may soon learn that some problem behaviors seem to go on both sides. What should we do about that? This leads us to the second activity. When a behavior falls in both categories, we need to ask the staff and ourselves, what does that behavior look and sound like? When we get to this point, we should make another T-chart and do a breakdown of observable behaviors and decide which are classroom managed and which are office managed. There is an example on the next slide. You need to keep in mind that many of us have strong beliefs of what disrespect is based on our cultural norms and values, but not everyone may agree. This is another opportunity for staff to find a middle ground. Here is an example for disruption. You can see how the office managed is a more escalated and serious incident than the classroom managed. You may laugh, but some teachers would send students to the office for calling out, arguing with them, touching each other, getting out of their seat and fidgeting. You need to encourage your staff to take time to create their own T-chart list for disrespect, disruption, and defiance. Once all the groups have completed their T-charts, you will need to bring everyone back together as a whole. You may decide how to do this part of the activity. You will need to hear from each group to learn where they put each problem behavior on their chart. If there are some inconsistencies, now is the time to open them up for discussion and come to a consensus. Make note of who is struggling with the location of certain behaviors. You can ensure they receive the PD needed to boost their skills for classroom management. You can also encourage them to work with another teacher in the building who is strong with responding to that challenging behavior. We will need to build skills in our staff if we expect them to manage more difficult behaviors in their classrooms. That's a wrap for the staff meeting. Make sure to thank them for sharing their thoughts and opinions on the discipline process. We will use this information to create our discipline flow chart, which will then be the guide to create the office discipline referral. Make sure to take pictures of all the T-charts for use at your next PBIS meeting. Next, you will take all the information gathered to build the discipline flow chart. At the PBIS meeting, you should talk over the results with the team and hang up the final T-chart. Go to www.wvpbis.org and review the editable templates for discipline flowcharts. Decide with the team which would work best for your school. Use your final T-chart to input the behaviors on the template. Also, decide on the language you want to use so it is consistent. For example, you could use teacher or classroom managed, office or administrator managed, or minor and major. You only want to include behaviors that were discussed during the staff meeting so there are no surprises to staff later on. Next, you will decide as a team which consequences teachers are to use when managing minor behaviors. What consequences are mandatory for minor behaviors and which are at the teacher's discretion? What steps should the teacher follow to record minor behaviors? The team will need to review the school handbook and discipline policy to ensure alignment of policies. Also, create an action plan for teaching staff the new process for managing classroom behaviors. The team will also follow the same process to determine the consequences and plan for major behaviors. The team will need to decide how students will be sent to the office and then return to class. How will staff receive feedback from the office on the outcome of the referral? Also, admin will need to be a large part in the decision-making process for this part of the flow chart. The team will need to action plan what needs created to make this process work and how will this process be taught to staff and admin. Admin must also stick to the flow chart so students see the school is consistent in addressing challenging behaviors. One of the most important pieces to creating your discipline flow chart is buy-in from staff. Including them in the process by getting feedback and giving them an opportunity to comment on the final draft will increase the chances of getting buy-in since they will feel their voice is heard. Do not rush the creation of the discipline flow chart. The major and minor office discipline referrals will be created based off the information provided in the flow chart. Congratulations, you just made a discipline flow chart for your school. Make sure to watch next the TFI 1.6 Part 2, Creating an Office Discipline Referral.